Hi there, this is David Hostler with 7C Music in St. Petersburg, Florida. Recently I posted some photos of our fret press we've designed here, and I started receiving emails and text messages requesting plans and how'd you build it, what are the parts that go along with it. So I thought what I would do is, instead of drawing those things up and sending them out, I go ahead and do a couple videos. The first one's going to be on why even use a fret press, what's the point of it. We've been doing frets for many years. Do you really need a fret press? Is it a good idea? And then the second one is going to be on the machine itself. If you decide it's something that you're interested in building, you'll be able to see the moving parts and maybe even improve on it for yourself. So thanks and enjoy these videos. So pressing frets in, what's the point? Why not just hammer them in and do things the way we've always done it? Well, for me, this kind of started out as trying to find a way to get frets in a guitar without pounding them in, and ultimately without having to do a lot of leveling on top and all the extra work that goes with standard fretting techniques. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but the way frets have been done for many years are refretting, not so much initial fretting, but refretting is a luthier or repairman will pull the frets, and then they'll sand the board, hopefully keeping the radius accurate on the board, and try and create a level surface to be working on. It's not as easy as it sounds. Then after that, they'll take a hammer. I know it seems silly, but this is what I've used for years. It's actually a regular framing hammer, only it's been high polished on the end and buffed out. And you take a hammer and you pound the frets in. Now once the frets are in, you'll look down, see how level they are or not, and it's a good technique. A lot of guys after that then we'll take a leveling file or something similar to this, and now the frets that they just pressed in on the board they just sanded out, now they'll take this file and they'll go on top of the frets, basically looking for high frets or filing them down to the point where they have again a level surface that they can work off of. So you have two things that happen. First, you sanded the board, hopefully getting a good sand out, and the second thing is you pounded the frets in. But the third thing is then you file them off again. So now you have frets that are flat, and typically what's done after that is we use what's called a crowning file or some version of that. So now you want to re-crown the files, put that nice top on the frets again, and with a nice clean line right down the center of the fret so that the string knows that's where it's supposed to push down. So that's kind of the old technique of fretting, and something I found incredibly laborious and quite frankly rather archaic. I still do it on occasions when I have to, but believe me, that's not my ideal way of fretting. So what I did was I started working on, set these tools down, a way to press frets in. Now, one of the challenges with pressing and getting around the body is the depth of the body. So instead of locating a large arbor press and paying big money for an arbor press, I thought, well, I already have a drill press. Why don't I make it so I can slide the guitar in there and press frets down? There are fretting tools that will allow you to press frets right up to about here, and then from there on out, you're on your own. You gotta hammer them in or whatever you do. So my idea was pretty simple. And the first version of this was to make something that I could position the guitar under the place where I wanted to press them and slide them down and keep pressing until I got all the way over the body. Now this still requires the use of something here which we'll get into in the next video. But the whole idea is that if I can sand the board keeping the radius real level, and if I'm good at doing a sand out, then if I can bend the wire to that same radius that I just sanded out, then if I can press it in at the same radius I just sanded out, I shouldn't have to do that much work on the top of the board, on the top of the frets to re-level them again. And that was the goal. Now the secondary thing that came in the midst of this was I had someone who came to me asking me to do stainless on their guitar. Now a little bit of history for you related to myself. I worked at Taylor for many years, and back in the late 90s, Bob Taylor had requested of Jeff Silver to get us some sample fret wire made out of stainless. Jeff got that, and of course we worked with it. We found a couple things. First of all, it was difficult in manufacturing to machine. Stainless steel, when you're doing certain milling work, will tend to smear instead of shearing off or cutting off real evenly. So as our beveling tool went down the neck, it would tend to smear the fret wire, which created even more work. The second thing is, all the guitars we did, a couple of them didn't sound very good. It actually significantly changed the sound of the guitar. So I carried all that with me for many, many years thinking, well, it must be the stainless wire. Little did I imagine that potentially the way we had done it might have caused the sound issue. Now the mechanical issues are still there, but the sound issues could have been something else. And since then I've kind of decided that what really happened was we used to pound frets back then. Stainless wire is not like nickel silver. Nickel silver will pretty much form to whatever you push it down to or work it with a hammer, and of course it work hardens as well. Stainless doesn't do that as easily. If you bend it in one place, it almost wants to kink a little bit. And if you keep pounding it to pound it down and get it nice and level, you have places where the wire is actually loose in the fret slot, but you don't know that. So you have notes that you'd be playing that don't ring out or ultimately change the tone of the guitar. So I had a customer come to me and say, I really need you to do stainless wire. I was carrying all these old ideas with me, but by that time I had version 1 of the fret press. Did the stainless on the fret press, and two things happened. Number one, the job came out almost flawlessly. First of all, because I'm pretty good at doing sand outs. Second of all, because I bent the wire to that sand out. And thirdly, because I pressed it in at that same radius. So what ended up happening was I had a great fret job. And it sounded great. It felt great. I didn't have to go along and now re-level the tops of the frets and re-crown the re-leveling. None of that was necessary. And that's one of the main advantages of pressing frets in. If you do it well, and believe me, pressing frets is like anything else. You still use tools, and you got to be good at using those tools. Don't just assume because you have this, well, that's what you do. For example, ebony you can press pretty well too. Rosewood, completely different story because it's softer. Of course, it's the same pounding frets. It doesn't pound the same as rosewood. Ebony is a little easier to fret to. Rosewood, a little more challenging. Maple, on either side of that. But the beauty of it is, by doing this and learning how to press and learning how to use this tool properly, I end up with fret jobs that look great. I don't end up losing half the wire I just put in, and I don't have to do all the crowning work that's attached to that. So that's some of the reasons pressing is a good idea. I do still hammer, and I enjoy hammering, and maybe it's just there's something manly about it, I don't know. But the design of the fret press and what we've created here is really meant to make this whole process easier. Version 1 I did with drawer slides, and it worked pretty well for a while, and as a tool it tended to wear out. Plus you're pressing down, so whatever you're pressing down on needs to be able to resist properly. Version 2, which I just did recently, uses linear rail bearings and a few other little tricks that I'm going to cover in the next video. So hopefully that's helpful to you, and hopefully this is good information, something you'll enjoy. If not, just realize you just wasted a short bit of time.